How's it going, modern manual therapy viewers? It's Dr. E here, and I'm back with a wrist update for this Top 5 Fridays edition. So the last time you guys probably heard, maybe sometime in October or November, I was updating on just what I learned from having chronic wrist pain and how it affected my life and my well-being and how I thought about myself and my activities and from working out to professional life to home life. So, a lot of you guys have been asking online and at my seminars, you've been coming up to me and asking how my wrist is doing. So I thought it was time for an update. In January, even though I still actually have the same size cyst, and sometimes it's larger, sometimes it's smaller, I just woke up one day and the pain was pretty much completely gone. Granted, in December, I'd started working out again with more resistance training, although it still hurt. It still hurt to extend my thumb. It still hurt with resistance. And I'm doing that gingerly now because I still have that neuro tag that says it's going to hurt, even if it doesn't. I assume it's going to hurt many times, so I do it gingerly, even though it doesn't hurt anymore. So the funny thing, and the first thing I learned is that time heals all things, or time heals all wounds. And, I think what I really learned from that is that I often preach about rapid responders and how many patients are rapid responders, but I think we would reach a lot of people who we thought were otherwise non-responders or even slow responders if we just gave it time. Granted, I wouldn't tell patients like, hey, you know what, come back and see me in 8 months and we'll see where you're at. But at the same time, we often consider ourselves failures, or we think that we didn't do our best by the patient. But time has a funny way of healing things and just kind of cleaning things up. And I'm probably at the point where maybe if you listen to my Therapy Insiders podcast with Stu McGill, where he said that the research that shows that asymptomatic discs, he didn't necessarily believe in the asymptomatic disc because he said it was probably asymptomatic at one time, and just at the time that he looked at it, maybe it was all scarred down. And I feel the same way about this because, again, the cyst is still here, but when it was painful, it would often snap over my radial nerve, and I would get the shot of pain, and it hasn't really snapped since. So maybe everything has had time to scar down. And that leads me to the second point, is that the second point that I learned is that for some people, pathoanatomy matters, and it also doesn't. And, it used to drive me crazy that I would have this really small wrist cyst, and it was causing me so much pain and so much anguish, and I couldn't hold my baby, and it was limiting my my work and my ability to resistance train. So, but then I would see like a little old lady with a Baker cyst, basically the size of a grapefruit in the back of her knee. It didn't hurt at all, and she's like, "Can you believe this Baker cyst?" And it's this thing that pain is unpredictable, and that was actually my third point: is pain is fascinating, it's unpredictable. And I think that I was, as often as I was frustrated and upset with it, I was also kind of wondering, in terms of pain science and in terms of what I know and what I've researched, no matter the education and no matter what you know rationally, you really can't predict what your brain is going to consider threatening. Even if I would tell patients like, oh, don't worry about crepitus. Crepitus, if it doesn't hurt, it's not a problem. The problem is that sometimes it hurts, or sometimes snapping hurts. And when it hurts, that quick movement, or that snap of a cyst, a radial nerve over a cyst, as I move my thumb and wrist around in a certain way, my brain did not like that input, and that output it absolutely made me stop whatever activity was threatening at the time. So the fourth thing I learned was that activity modification is really key. And I think that, again, as often as I preach resets, I also preach that inner continuum, that you need to build up your buffer zone by doing enough resets or activities that are going to kind of otherwise de-threaten the nervous system and kind of tune down excessive tone and improve your mobility, etc. You need to do those and reinforce it, because those improvements are going to be transient. Yet at the same time, I don't think we give enough credit to the simple solution of just avoiding triggers. And certainly triggers can be negative thoughts. It could be avoiding stressful situations or stressful areas, such as, like, if you don't have to be at work any longer than you have to be, then don't just leave as soon as you can. Try not to burn the midnight oil, et cetera, et cetera. But just avoiding just physical triggers, physical positions, any kind of activity as much as possible. I mean, I splinted myself. I avoided resistance training for probably about 6 months until I could kind of handle it again. Every time I tried, I would probably go a little bit too gung-ho or do a little bit more than my nervous system and my tissue tolerance was able to, and I would flare it up for a week or so. And then I gradually, again, just from avoiding triggers enough and just letting the system settle down enough, again, that was 6 months or so, I was able to do it again. And granted, I wasn't nearly as strong as I was before, but I was really happy, and my mental well-being was improved because I was able to work out again. And the last thing I really learned was that you really shouldn't beat yourself up if you tried your best. And again, there's patients that you're going to fail with. And Chad Cook said it on a Therapy Insiders podcast, like, how arrogant are you that you think you're going to get 100% of your patients better? And the thing about that, I mean, it's so true. And I've been doing this almost 20 years now, and I still get upset if I can't help someone. It's just, I don't necessarily, it's more like I feel bad for the patient that they are going through something and I couldn't necessarily help them immediately. But I still always try to stay positive, and I tell them, maybe even now I have a story that relates to it, and I tell them that over time things just tend to take care of themselves if you avoid enough triggers. And you may not be responding right now, but it doesn't mean this won't resolve itself in the future. So time heals all things. Pathoanatomy matters sometimes, and then it doesn't, because I still have this pathoanatomical wrist cyst, and I'm sure my MRI would look very similar, with all its tendrils kind of extending all around to the thumb extensor tendon, and right down into my radial nerve. I'm glad I didn't get it surgically removed in October and November when I was planning on doing that. Activity modification is key. Pain is fascinating and it's unpredictable, and don't beat yourself up if you tried your best. So I hope you like this little update, and remember to give patients hope and telling them sometimes they don't want to hear this, but sometimes time is a way of taking care of themselves. I think that you should think about that for your non-responders or your slow responders as well. Sometimes we don't give our non-responding patients as much time as they really need for whatever reason, whatever their ecosystem needs and will allow for. So remember to subscribe to Modern Manual Therapy via email so you don't miss any of our awesome weekly blog updates. Check out edgemobilitysystem.com and modernmanualtherapy.com. Have a great day.